Hey D&D fam, I'm Quick.
And I'm Lee, and you're listening to
Divas and Ducats. So what is a diva? I think divas get a bad rep, but to me, diva is all about the attitude.
As for ducats, it's your finances, your assets, Skrilla, guap, your coin. We're talking all things with the potential to affect your pockets.
And while we're attorneys by trade, we are divas by choice. Divas and Ducats is for edutainment purposes.
Y'all, we are not Series 511 or 703 professionals. This does not create a financial advisor or attorney-client relationship. The views expressed here are solely our opinions and the opinions of our guests.
It's just our opinions, y'all. Okay, divas, let's talk Ducats.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, D&D family. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again.
We're back.
Yes. And it is May, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And we are bringing back in one of our top listened to episode guest of honor, Todd Malloy. Say hello.
Hello. How are you? Thank you for both having me.
Thank you for coming back to Divas and Ducats. We have done a live with Todd, so you can go onto Divas and Ducats website to find that. But last year, during Mental Health Awareness Month, Todd joined us to talk about Just Man Up. And that has been one of our most listened to episodes for those people that are on YouTube. Yes. We weren't recording at the time, so you would have to go back and listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts,
Google,
or
whatever platform you prefer.
So we're on all podcast platforms, so you can go back. That was a really great episode. So we just wanted to bring him back in here today and talk about what's on our discussion.
So today on our Diva Docket, we're talking about imposter syndrome. A lot of people struggle with it, regardless of what industry you work in or your standing, or it just kind of comes out across the workforce, especially. And it can really, in certain ways, hold you back, you know? So we wanted to talk about it, especially this month. It's so important. So we just needed to bring a professional back because we like to tackle issues in a intelligent and informed manner.
And we're also in, we record out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And I also recently heard it's one of the top, I think 5 or top 10 places to start a business. And when I think about those things, starting a business, getting in new jobs, trying to find those careers, like imposter syndrome is just, it runs rampant in all of those things and really holding people back. So we just wanted to talk about it because obviously, it can be so deep that it affects your ducat. So
indeed.
Yes, let's get into that, Todd. So
all right.
My first question. So tell the listeners about yourself for those that are joining us on YouTube and have not heard you before.
Well, let's see. I'm 58, so there's a whole lot to tell, but I'll keep it simple. Well, no, basically, I'm the clinical director of Inner Peace Counseling Center. I do a little speaking and show production, things of that nature. Just a guy really that wants to be a part of the solution to the ills of society and help people make it through crossroads. So things like imposter syndrome and so forth, I facilitate people becoming their greatest selves and living lives worth celebrating.
All right.
That's awesome. And what is your specialty as a therapist?
Well, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, and certified sexuality educator.
All right.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's get into it. This might be a softball for you, but for those who have not heard the term imposter syndrome, is that real? How is it defined?
Well, imposter syndrome is doubting yourself and feeling like a fraud. It typically impacts high achievers, people in the professional realms, things of that nature. When it was first started, it was focused strictly on women, but as they dug a little deeper, it impacts a lot, basically marginalized people for the most part, because it is, first let me share, it's not a mental health disorder. Number one.
Okay.
It's not in the DSM-5, it's not an ICD code. However, as a result of it, people do acquire anxiety, depression, and it can turn into a mental health issue.
Okay.
Got you.
That makes sense.
and so in general, again, it's doubting yourself and feeling like a fraud, even though there's evidence to the contrary. Uh, you're functioning as a financial officer, you're functioning as a doctor,
Yeah.
but typically women, typically people of color, sometimes doubt themselves, and it's not so much what's going on inside of them. It's really it's really about a why. Oftentimes when people struggle with something, it's not that they're struggling. It's okay. Well, you have to ask yourself why this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about marginalized communities and imposter syndrome, because you're always challenged: are you good enough? Are you bright enough? Are you smart enough?
Yeah.
You know, African Americans have been told that you have to work twice as hard to go half as far. You have to be twice as smart. If you're not, then these things aren't made available to you.
Yeah.
Women, you're supposed to be sugar and spice everything nice. You're supposed to be barefoot pregnant in the kitchen, but not in the boardroom. So now that you break through those stereotypes and you get there, and you're dealing with office politics, societal politics, it does play a toll. Over time, if you're told you're not enough, you're told you're not bright enough, you're told you're not smart enough, you tend to second guess and doubt yourself, even though there's evidence to the contrary. So I spend a lot of times challenging people: why don't you believe you? Where are you picking these messages up, and why are they the authority over your life and you not?
Yeah.
And so I know you said that they're two marginalized communities, two groups, the African American groups, women groups. So does imposter syndrome affect white men?
Well, according to studies, it's least likely to happen because they're usually affirmed. They usually have mentors. They have people to walk with them through the process. They have people they see and can emulate. So it's less likely to happen.
Right.
So, understanding these types of things, that's why, and I guess it's kind of no secret I'm African American. So I made it a point when my children were coming up to make sure they saw African Americans in a wide variety of demographics and professions, and dentists and doctors, OBGYNs, you name it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted them to recognize and level set the playing field and try to offset some of the societal things that are going on.
Yeah.
So, yes, typically it's marginalized people, women, and people of color.
Okay. And so you mentioned, it kind of stems from some, societal expectations, or maybe you operate outside those expectations. So, maybe why, if you know the answer to this, why more so the overachievers than, or I guess people call them type A personality types, than maybe you're more laid back, maybe why that specific group are they more affected?
Well, again, the research states for the same reasons. However, it's about being good enough. Overachievers tend to be goal-driven and do not tend to celebrate their wins. They tend to just be focused on the next
immediately.
Yeah.
So, correct. So they're not taking the time, and whatever motor is running them, they're not taking time to connect to their own experience. And so, for example, I have a current client, outstanding young man doing multi-million-dollar deals, and he shared about 2 weeks ago, he says, I feel like an imposter. I don't feel like I'm supposed to be doing this. Even though he's been driven his whole life, he comes from a very dysfunctional family dynamic where now as a 29-year-old, he's the head of his family. Even though there's a father in place, there's a mother, there are other family members. So again, it's sometimes the drive and the motive, the impetus to do better, to achieve, becomes the focal point, and you tend to neglect self in the process, the emotional self in the process.
I don't know, that just is so, it's not surprising to me, but it's just interesting to me that no matter the level of success that other people view that you have, you still feel like it's about to be taken away at any moment. They're gonna find me out.
Correct.
I don't deserve this.
It's sad, but this is why I do what I do. I help challenge people to ask the questions why they think the way that they do. Why do you discount you? Why do you not value you? Because I actually challenge them and say, How can you have that mindset and value yourself, value the investment that you've made in yourself, and begin to process it? Who taught you weren't good enough? Who taught you to doubt yourself? I'll say, well, nobody taught me that. But what are the messages that you got? Remember, it's not the conscious mind that really drives us. It's the subconscious mind that drives us. So therefore, over time, as you're getting these subliminal messages, these microaggressions, things of that nature, it begins to erode who you are if you're not conscious and intentional about counting yourself as a factor in your own equation of life. We're taught to look outwardly, not inward.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to look the part. You know, if you buy an iPhone 12, in 6 months there's going to be another one. But they're going to try to convince you that yours is inadequate and that you need to spend more money before this one's paid off.
Right.
You're not tall enough, you're not dark enough, you're not short enough, you're too light, you're too this, you're too that, you're too all of those things. Or one that I heard personally when I first got into corporate America, they said you're an uppity nigga that don't know your place.
Ooh.
What did they actually say, Todd?
Is that what they said?
No. It was a good old boy. 20-year Naval veteran, Caucasian, said to me, "You are an uppity nigga that don't know your place."
In corporate. Okay. Oh, this was before the zero tolerance. Okay.
Well, let's put it this way. I've entered corporate America in the early 80s.
Okay.
Whew.
Okay. All right.
No, that was real. That was real. You know, corporate. I spent 30 years in corporate America.
That's crazy.
And at a number of varying levels, and it's an interesting environment.
It is.
It definitely can be. And I think what resonated with me is when you spoke to that personality type doesn't celebrate their wins. They're looking at the next thing, because I can honestly say myself, and especially like, you know, peers I hang out with, whether in their same industry or different, that's the thing. It's like it's so innate to, I've achieved this, what's next? Like it's like almost like a little ladder. Like if you don't check it off, and I don't know what we think is going to happen if you don't check it off, but it's just. And I'm not sure where that comes from. It's just something that you graduate law. Okay, now I gotta do this. So
right, a lot of the overachievers always compare themselves to their peer groups, and if they have the perception and they see, remember, we're taught to look outwardly, not inwardly. So I'm a firm believer, and we only compete against ourselves. However, people actually believe we're competing against someone else. And as long as you're always looking outside for validation, you're always chasing something.
Yeah.
Because, according to, if I have clients, architects, high-level professionals, seeing the lives of their friends on Facebook and becoming depressed. Because I didn't go to Bali. My papers aren't straight enough to buy the next Bentley or whatever the case may be. So now that continues to drive that hamster.
Yeah.
And talking about that, like, how closely do you think the comparison trap and imposter syndrome intersect with each other?
I think, remember, if looking at the research and how it was identified back in 78, it really highlights what's going on systemically. It's less about the individual, and they focused on the why. And because of the societal pressures and stressors, facilitates that. So it's society, it's systemic thing. So even though we're working to address individuals, it's a societal shift, systemic shift, part of which is happening now in society, with now having, Black Lives Matters, all the things that have happened during 2020 is creating systemic shifts. And that's actually what is identified as what's needed to facilitate the change, where we can actually validate ourselves, feel valued, feel important, feel significant, because some of the negative stereotypes are not being bombarded. I was thoroughly shocked during the NCAA games, basketball game, March Madness, when they said the Dove had a commercial, celebrate Black men off the court. I was like,
yeah.
Wow, I've actually never heard that before. Now I've said on many occasions, Black men have been emasculated since we got on this land. and to actually hear a commercial say "celebrate" was phenomenal.
Right.
It was a great thing to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so what is a lot of because you say you ask your clients, like, why don't you kind of validate yourself? Like, what is a lot of in having those conversations with the clients, where does a lot of the negative self-talk come from? Is particular in situations where they didn't have parents that are demeaning them. Like, I think those are the easier situations when you have people that's constantly telling you. But
you have to think about this. It's not just family of origin. Everybody has their own story, their own baggage.
Right.
But there's societal things. There's the church. Church has a structure. Society has a structure. Remember, you can't drink a Coca-Cola without having a heart, a six-pack and all of these different things. I'm going to sell a car, but I'm gonna have a woman in a bikini on top of the car. But then you look at it and you feel inadequate because you don't look like that person. I don't know if this is appropriate to say or not, but even with my clients, I ask them to, because again, I am a sex therapist.
Okay.
But when they're looking to cultivate their intimate lives and so forth, I ask them to look at amateur porn, not professional porn. Because what they do is look at the body type, and then they become defeated because their bodies don't look like the hard body, the plastic surgery, all the different things that are going on.
Right.
So when people are bombarded with images of acceptance that don't look like them, it's easy to feel as though you're unacceptable. So it's more than just family of origin. It's society. It's TV.
Yeah.
It could be here it is. Music says, "I want a soldier. I want a thug. Got to be a roughneck." But what if you're Big Daddy Kane and you're subtle and smooth? You won't disapprove. Does this make me different?
Right. Yeah.
Right, so it comes from all walks of society.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And one of it made me think into, because I'm always like, okay, so how do we solve it? What's the fix? So I know one of the statistics you found was actually about, and I think we talked about it when we spoke to like Miss HR about compensation and things like that. And the statistic was basically that a lot of times with applying for a job, for an example, men will apply even if they have 50% of the requirements that are listed in the rec, whereas women sometimes will have maybe even more than 50, but not all, and will choose not to apply
because they'll focus on that one,
because they'll focus on the few that they don't have or they don't meet. So in saying that, I wonder what are some of the things that people can do if they're seeing themselves in this episode and kind of hearing some of the things. I'm like, I do that. Like, what are some things that people can start to do to kind of work on, the imposter syndrome? I know it's something that is probably a constant, thing.
Definitely
but,
constant.
Well, number one is really begin to do the internal work. Really begin to ask yourself why you feel the way you feel. And how true is it? Am I an imposter if I've already gone to school? Am I an imposter if I've already experientially or actually done the work? Throughout life, you've grown. Throughout life, you've learned. Throughout life, you've been challenged and you've become victorious. It's about believing your own story. And as you begin to doubt yourself, is really challenge yourself is, why would I doubt me? Why would I doubt my experience? And why is that negative voice more important than my own? Thing is also go out and find mentors, find people that are doing some of the things that you have interest in doing, and gaining mentorship, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes even in the mentorship, it can be hard because you kind of fall back into the comparison trap, right? You got a mentor that's where you want to be, and you're like, oh, if I start doing what they do.
But the beautiful thing about that, if a true mentor, you also find out they're human. Remember, we're in a society, I come across this quite often, where people forget that they're human. We are all perfectly flawed.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
Because, and also I like to always share that Doubt is a normal part of life. Anytime you're at a new beginning, anytime you're starting something new, doing something different, there is that natural sense of anxiety. There is that natural sense of the fear of the unknown. But the moment you don't control your emotions and you allow your emotions to control you, you're out of control.
Right.
We have to learn to normalize anxiety, depression, sadness, these types of things, because it doesn't make it awful. No, I recognize that, and I always challenge clients. Emotions are more traffic signs, more traffic signals than something that should cause you to recoil. Fear is slow down, be strategic, walk like you're walking through a minefield, as opposed to just run through. Anxiety really tells you slow down, process a little more smoothly. Sadness, depression really says, hey, get up, move, create, do something to make yourself happy. Listen to music, go for a jog, increase the dopamine. That's really what these signals mean. It doesn't mean the world's coming to an end. It's a message, there's a lesson. And why not focus on the lesson as opposed to the feeling or the experience?
I do think a lot of times people are scared to sit in the more negative feelings, the ones that are not as positive. Fear is something reflecting on me, and I'm the only one going through it. If I'm angry, then
right. But my point is, at what point do we really begin to, just because we have a thought doesn't mean we have to follow it down the rabbit hole. Why not, if we do have a thought, why not come up with the contrary and validate whether it's accurate? Even in cognitive behavioral therapy, it's you have to check the rationale for a thought before accepting it.
So, an example, how would you do that? Like an example of doing something like that?
Well, for example, I have early in my career, I used to be an engineer, and I did design work. And now all of a sudden they give me this powerful computer. I'm using CAD to design something that's supposed to be ergonomically safe and so forth. Meanwhile, I'm reminded that I come from a family that has my mother that has a 9th grade education, lower socioeconomic situation, straight hood dude, welfare child, all of this other stuff. But it's just like, you're over here thinking that you can do this stuff. It creates the challenge. But after a while, you have to look and say, yeah, all of that is true, Todd, but I'm here. And, me being a man of faith, I allow my faith to say, if I'm here, it ain't no secret to God that he's going to cover me. The same God that got me here is the same God that's going to lead me, move me forward. Now, whether you believe in God or not, it's about a will, an intestinal fortitude that got you here, that validates you. One of the things that I enjoy about people and our little colloquialisms and so forth, when you've been through adversity or testimony, when we're with our friends and in other adversity, we just say, what? I've been through everything. You can't stop me. You can't beat me.
Yeah.
Aaron Neville sang in a song once that he was knocked out in prison. And when he sang that song, it was like giving everybody a message. I've already been to hell. Can't nothing stop me.
Right.
If you can imagine the visual of that picture and recognize that when I've beaten all the adversity that I've already beaten, what am I afraid of?
Yeah.
So therefore it helps temper the experience, because as adults, what emotion, what feeling, what experience have you not already overcome? There are no new feelings. There are no new emotions. And each time those things showed up, there was a way for you to move forward. You have a lifetime's worth of evidence.
Yeah.
Bible's very clear. The two most powerful things are the word of your testimony and the blood of Jesus. So why not believe your own story? You have evidence of beating depression, beating sadness, being compared to people you don't want to be compared to, whatever the case might be. You've been told no and still overcame. Allow those messages to counter the self-doubt, the self-fear, anxiety, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Just because I feel it doesn't mean that I have to yield to.
I like
That's
that.
a word.
Ain't it?
And because listen, it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
Best believe sometimes I sit
Right.
am I
No,
really?
no, but think about this. I agree with you. But we press through adversity all day, every day. If a guy pursues a woman and she says no, he don't take no for the answer.
Wow.
He's still gonna pursue you. If there's something that you want, a woman wants, she gonna get it. Your man could tell you not to buy something. He wait for budget reasons.
That's
You buy that coat anyway. You put it in the back of the closet. Then 4 months later, ooh, I just bought this coat. That coat been sitting there for the last 4 months.
To our listeners, we're not encouraging that. No.
It happened. Let's be real.
Right.
It happened. My point is, we press through adversity every day, and we overlook the victories that were claimed. And I challenge people to actually really look at your story.
Yeah.
Your story is that of power. That your story is that of deliverance, irrespective. The mere fact that you're here says that you've already won.
Okay. You gonna pass the collection, Blake?
Right. Receive it.
Right.
Just listen to it and receive it, because there's negative talk going on as you're hearing this.
Let it sprinkle up.
Right. Just
and
listen.
I was gonna say one of the things that helps me, because it pops up here and there, is in my mental health journey, the quote was, "Your feelings are valid, but your feelings aren't facts." So sometimes I'll literally write down, like, almost like a side by side of, like, what am I feeling and what do I know to be true right now. And sometimes that, just kind of helps bring you back to, like, okay, I'm okay. Now, of course, those feelings, it's uncomfortable to sit in it, but it does kind of help you kind of, like, what, I am the ish. What was I thinking? So I think,
very much so.
Whatever, just a suggestion, but whatever helps in terms of those moments of, like, let's compare what is to what you're feeling.
Right. Yeah. And that goes back to the cognitive construct of validating the experience and finding if it's fairly rational.
But okay, so Todd, where can the people find you if they want more from you, if they want to maybe sit on your couch and work through some of these issues? Where can they find you?
Well, I can be found at innerpeacecounseling.com, our website. We're also Inner Peace Counseling Center on Facebook, Inner Peace on Instagram, or you can reach out to us at 704-937-2286.
All right.
And we'll be more than happy to work with you.
Sit on a chair.
Yes, go and sit down.
work through these things.
Yes. And we will have this information in our episode notes, of course. We want to thank Todd for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for being here as our listeners. If you're on YouTube watching us, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You can find us at www.divasanducats.com. Our email for those times where we have the time to, after getting through rich material, to hear your listener letters. Our email is divaadvice@gmail.com, and we're on Instagram and Facebook under the same name, Divas and Ducats.
So in the meantime, in between time, have a great attitude.
Right, bye.
Bye.